A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And the reason Allah says is that shaitan wants to turn you into enmity and he wants to turn you into hatred. Of course, the money that we have in the house to spend on the basic necessities of our family, if the same money will be spent into gambling and in the same money goes for khamar, then of course you will be left with very little to spend on the relations, and this is going to strain the relations. A lot of the wives complain that when the husbands come home, they become stingy with the matters of the family, but when it comes to gambling and khamar, they have ample to spend. This is going to strain the relationships, and of course in such a family where the relationships are strained, the house can never be peaceful. And Allah says that in this case you will have to understand, and above all it stops you from the zikr of Allah. That means when the intellect is gone, when there is no intellect, when there is no rationalism, when there are no rational decisions, of course the matters are going to get strained, whether it is related to huququllah, whether it is related to huququl ibad. Wa atiyullaha wa atiyur rasula wahzaru, obey Allah and obey the Rasul and abstain from those things. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ, but if you do not, فَعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا عَلَى رَسُولِنَا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ, then you should know that our Rasul's duty is only to pass on the message to us. That's the only job of a da'i, to convey the message, what Allah says. لَيْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ جُنَاحٌ فِيمَا تَمْئِمُوا إِذَا مَا اتَّقَوْا وَآمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ ثُمَّ اتَّقَوْا وَآمَنُوا ثُمَّ اتَّقَوْا وَأَحْسَنُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. There is no blame on those who believe and do good deeds for what they ate in the past, provided they abstain from those things which have been made unlawful. They remain steadfast in their belief and do righteous deeds, then abstain themselves from whatever they were forbidden from and believe in the law, that is the divine law, and then fear Allah and they do good deeds, for Allah loves those who do good deeds. And ihsan is husn. It comes from the word husn also, that you do something with beauty, you do something with the indulgence of your heart, and you do more than that what is required. So in this case also we see that the people, the Sahaba who were killed in Ghazwa Uhud, they had alcohol in their stomachs at that time, and the Sahabas were really worried about them, that what will happen to them then. On that Allah Ta'ala revealed this ayat, that for those, because this clear indication came after that, so for those Allah Ta'ala is not going to hold them accountable. But yes, once the information has come to you, then you become liable to follow it, and then if you do not, then of course then the accountability also stands. So if anybody, and I'm sure many of us, despite the fact that we know a lot of things of Islam, it's not that we don't know, we do know, but despite knowing we make mistakes, and despite knowing the facts, we keep repeating them, and we always have the guilt in us how to get rid of them also at the same time. These are the signs of Iman, as long as this conscience is alive within us, that we want to get rid of them. And then we ask Allah, how should we get rid of them? In such a case, Allah says, Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Now we will go on to another topic. Allah says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la yabluwannakumullahu bishay'in min as-saydi tanaluhu aydikum wa rimahukum liya'lamullahu man yakhafuhu bil ghaib. O believers, Allah will put you to trial by making game that which is to be hunted well within the reach of your hands and your spears, in order to see who fears Him, though unseen. There shall therefore be a painful punishment for those who transgress after these warnings. O believers, do not kill game while you are in ihram. If anyone kills game intentionally, he will have to pay a penalty through an offering brought to Kaaba of a domestic animal equivalent to the one which was killed, as determined by two just men among you, or as an expiation, either feed poor people or fast their equivalent days, so that he may taste the evil consequences of what he did. Allah has forgiven what happened in the past, but if anyone repeats it now, Allah will inflict punishment on him. Allah is mighty, capable of retribution. In this we will see that those who are in the state of ihram, and especially related to Sulh Hudaybiyah, when the Sahabas were going to perform Umrah and they were stopped. Now in the Arabs, their culture was to go for hunting, and they loved it, and this was one of their entertainments that they really enjoyed. In the state of ihram, Allah Ta'ala says that this same lawful thing becomes unlawful for you, otherwise you can do it. But while you are in the state of ihram, then you cannot do so. Although if the game is coming right within your reach, where you are just able to catch it like that, still you cannot do it. And why Allah has put this condition is that He wants to see who fears Allah. Sometimes we are so easy in doing a sin, we are very close in doing the sin. It is so beautiful and so easy for us to commit. But the fact remains, can I abstain from it? This is taqwa. So here Allah says that in this case, you cannot kill anything while you are in the state of ihram. Hazrat Aisha radiyallahu anha, she explained in which Aap said that Muhrim is allowed to kill 5 of the fawasik. What are the 5 fawasik which can still be killed in the state of ihram? Number 1 is a crow, number 2 a scorpion, number 3 a snake, number 4 is a mouse, and number 5 is a rabid dog, one that is suffering from rabies. These 5 can be killed even when you are in the state of ihram. Then Allah says that if any one of you is, despite that it has been made unlawful, still commits it intentionally, then he will have to pay a penalty. And what is the penalty? That he will have to bring a domestic animal equivalent to the one that he is killed to the Kaaba, and he will have to slaughter in the name of Allah. 2 men are going to decide from amongst you that what is the equivalent of the hunt that he did. In this we can just put up a few examples. For example, somebody has hunted an antelope. Then the scholars say that he will have to slaughter a sheep. And if he cannot do so, then he will have to feed at least 6 people, or he will have to fast for 3 days. Similarly, if somebody has hunted a deer, the equivalent to the deer will be a cow. If he cannot slaughter a cow, sacrifice a cow, then he will either have to feed 20 people or he will fast for 20 days. Similarly, if he has hunted a zebra or an ostrich, then the return will be through a camel. If not so, then he will have to feed 30 people or he will have to fast for 30 days. Wallahu alam. Now, 2 men are going to decide whether this animal is sufficing it or not, equivalent, is it comparable or not. So you need to have 2 people on that. Otherwise, Allah says then you will fast for the equivalent days, which I have given you with the example set by the scholars. Why Allah is setting this example is that so that he may taste the consequences of his disobedience. Whatever happened in the past, Allah says he should not repeat it now. But as far as the sea is concerned, Allah says game of the sea and its use as food is lawful for you and the travelers by sea. Why? Because once you are in the sea, then for a very long time you may not get to the land. And in that case, even if you are in the state of ihram, then you can still have the seafood. But the game of the land is forbidden as long as you are in the state of ihram. Have fear of Allah, to whom you shall all be assembled. Allah has made the Kaaba of the sacred house an eternal value for mankind, and so are the sacred months. And what are the sacred months? Those are the Zilqa'dah, Zilhajj, Muharram and Rajab. These were the 4 sacred months which were declared sacred before and after Islam. The animal offerings and the animals which are collared as a mark of dedication, these are the ones that will be taken for Hajj. So you must know that Allah has knowledge of what is in the heavens and in the earth, and that Allah is well aware of everything. Why? Because Allah is then going to provide you security and safety by declaring these marks. These are all symbols of asylum. You should also know that Allah is stern in retribution, and that Allah is at the same time, He is merciful and He is forgiving. Ma ala rasuli illa al balagh. The only duty of the Rasul is to pass on my message. Allah knows all what you reveal and what you conceal. Allah says, قُلْ يَا يَسْتَوِي الْخَبِيثُ وَالطَّيِّبُ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثِيرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Tell them, bad and good are not equal, even though the abundance of the bad may dazzle you. So fear Allah, O people of understanding, Ya ulul albab, la'allakum tuflihun, that you may prosper. This simply says that the little that is permissible is far better than the abundance of evil. If only one can understand that for us to survive, we can even survive on the bare minimum. We don't need too many things for survival. And if somebody can be convinced on this point that yes, we need very little to survive, in that case you will see that he will be able to understand the meaning of falah. Why do we have to understand the word falah on its own? Why? Because this dunya is not the ultimate. This is not eternity. This is just a phase of what has yet to come out of the main reality. In this, if we are able to make ourselves convince and make ourselves understand that I eventually have to go on somewhere else, and through this little phase of my life I have to attain my success. For us, successes are defined in many ways. Somebody goes for fame, somebody goes for status, somebody goes for leadership, some will go for education, some will have some other ideals and role models. But the basic is that for the sound minds, they will realize that whatever has been allowed is far more than enough for us to survive. We don't need anything beyond that. And this is why extravagance and this is why indulgence in the unlawful has been forbidden. Why? Because we don't even need it. If you can make yourself understand that we don't even need it, it's just the shaitan that whispers and prompts that listen, this has become your need. Today a lot of the unlawful have been created as a need, whereas those were just luxuries, those were just moments of entertainment which was not actually required. So if you will let the permissible be sufficient for you, this is what Allah says, la'allakum tuflihun, so that you become successful. So just like we read about gambling and we read about khamar and azlam and ansab, all these are things which can be avoided if only we can understand. Then Allah says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. Now see, whenever Allah Ta'ala is trying to give us something which has to be done or something which has to be refrained, the way He addresses us, is that Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, O those of you who believe. So the question remains, do we believe? Yes, we believe. So when we believe, then it should be easy for us to follow. Do not ask question about things that if revealed to you may cause you trouble. But if you ask a question about something when the Quran is being revealed, it will be made known to you. Allah has forgiven you what you did to date. Allah is forgiving, forbearing. Some people before you did ask some such questions and later they lost their faith. Because of those very things, Allah did not institute innovations like those of a slit-ear she-camel or a she-camel let loose for free pasture, or idol sacrifices for twin birds in animals, or stallion camels freed from work. This lie is invented by the unbelievers against Allah, and most of them lack understanding. When it is said to them, come to what Allah has revealed and come to the Rasul, they reply, sufficient for us are the ways on which we found our forefathers. What? Even though their forefathers knew nothing and were not rightly guided, meaning they will still follow them, they will still listen to them. Here we see that Allah Ta'ala is guiding the believers not to ask unnecessary questions, number one, or not to ask questions before they are required to ask. In the case of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, if you remember, Bani Israel asked irrelevant questions which made their own slaughtering of the cow difficult, and they finally had to slaughter the cow that they worshipped. Sometimes even in the Quran you have felt that there are questions that we need answers for. We have to wait till till it comes. If it is something which is in the later paras, which will eventually come, and while you are reading, you should wait for the topic to come. Don't jump to those topics. At the time of Prophet Muhammad also, people while in the gatherings of Prophet Muhammad used to ask him irrelevant questions. And it came to a point when the Sahabas were asking so many questions that it made Nabi angry. When one man from the crowd got up and asked Nabi who was my father? And Nabi replied to him that Huzaifa was your father. Meaning, if the question is for guidance, for knowledge, for understanding, for improving our behavior and our amal, that is desirable. But if a question is just coming out of mockery, and it is just coming out of defiance, and it is just coming out for the sake of an argument or a debate, and there is no such of changing or correcting our faiths, then those are discouraged here. And Allah says that in the case that you will, that people who have asked before you and then they lost their faith because of that, because then those things were made difficult for them. Even in the cases of Bani Israel, they were asking so many things, Allah made so many things difficult for them then. So here we also see that there was in this one man in the gathering of Prophet Muhammad who stood up and he asked that should we perform Hajj every year? Nabi did not reply to him, although he asked him 3 times. And finally Nabi said that had I said yes to your question, then it would have been made obligated on you that you had to do Hajj every year and you would not have been able to do so. So don't ask questions that will make your lives difficult. Nabi said that Allah the Most Honored has ordained some obligations, so do not ignore them. Has set some limits, so do not trespass them. He has prohibited some things, so don't commit them. And has left some things without rulings out of mercy for you. He didn't leave them, not that he forgot them, so do not ask about them. So if something has been left to our understanding, whereas the haram and the halal is very clear also, then don't ask unnecessary questions that may put you into trouble. So Allah says, referring to this same topic, Allah gives the example of Bahira and Saiba and Wasila. These were all different she-camels in the times of the Dore Jahiliya, when they used to leave them for free pastures. They used to leave them in the name of their idols. Allah says that this has been a lie which has been invented by these people themselves. This has got nothing to do with the true religion. So when they were called, when Islam came and when they were called that this is wrong, you need to stop it, they said no, our forefathers used to do it, so we'd rather stick to the trends and to the cultures of our forefathers than listening to what your religion talks about. So here Allah says that even if their forefathers were not rightly guided, are they still going to follow them? So what is the criteria then? What is the criteria of guidance then? That you have to see the cultures or the trends set by our elders in any family, even today. Are they in accordance with Sharia? Are they in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah? And whenever we talk about Sunnah, we always talk about the authentic ahadith related to Sunnah. If this is a practice in the Sharia, then of course the old trends should be followed. But if the trends are not matching the Quran and Sunnah, then it is upon us to decide, should I take their trend or should I follow what will remain for my success? They are not going to come with me in my qabr. They are not going to come with me when I will stand before Allah to answer for my questions. Then why do I have to make them my criteria of following? Why should not I take the book and the Sunnah when Allah says this is the guidance from me, this is what brings your salvation, this is something that you do not have to doubt about. So I don't think there is ambiguity here to understand either, that if they are not following, even then you are going to follow them. And mostly people who follow are the ones who don't know the book themselves, who don't know the basics of religion themselves. These are the ones that people take as trendsetters and then they start following them. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu alaykum anfusakum So you see the very next ayat says, O believers, you are accountable for none but yourselves. So look at your own selves first. Is this worth my following? Should I do it? A lot of times we have our friends with us, we have our relatives with us, it may be our colleagues or maybe any other person who comes up and keeps telling you that, listen, I don't think you are doing the right thing. This is how we do these things. This is how my mother told me. This is how my grandfather told me. I don't think you are doing it right. So why don't you come and follow this, because this is how they have been doing and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now this is not the criteria that there's nothing wrong with that. This is not the criteria that everybody is doing that, so I should also do it. I have to see, is that allowed? Is that allowed by Allah? Is that allowed by the Rasul? If not so, then I am accountable, and Allah says, for you, it's just yourself. Even the scholars say that even if you go out preaching to thousands of people, you will still be accountable for your own deeds. So even if you are understanding the point that, okay, fine, this is the difference, then you have to set yourself aside. Even if people don't follow you, you have to convey the message, convey it, have sincerity for them that yes, they should understand and follow, but worry about your own deeds. So Allah says, anyone who has gone astray cannot harm you if you are on the right way. And if anybody is on the wrong, and if they are feeling very good about it, if they can feel good being wrong, why should we not feel good when we are doing the right thing? In the cases of family where there are joint families, and a lot of times a lot of people in the family are doing very good, but they don't get to see the good in return from their relatives. And finally they decide for not being good anymore because there is no appreciation and there is no thank you and there is no gestures of that they have accepted your good from you. So they say, okay, fine, we've had enough, so I'm going to tell them what is a bad person. Allah says, those who have gone astray, they cannot harm you if you are on the right way. So don't give up your good habits for the sake of others' meanness or for the sake of others going on the wrong side. You have to stick to your good things. Ilallahi marji'ukum jami'a. Why? Why do we have to stick to our own goods? Because I have to return to Allah. We have all to return to Allah. فَيُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ, and He will let you know the truth of what you were doing actually. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا شَهَادَةُ بَيْنِكُمْ إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ حِينَ الْوَصِيَّةِ اثْنَانِ ذَوَا عَدْلٍ مِنْكُمْ أو آخران من غيركم إن أنتم ضربتم في الأرض فأصابتكم مصيبة الموت تحبسونهما من بعد الصلاة فيقسمان بالله إن ارتبتم لا نشتري به ثمنا ولو كان ذا قربى ولا نكتم شهادة الله إنا إذا لمن الآثمين. O believers, when death approaches any one of you, let two just men from among yourselves act as witnesses at the time of making your last will, or from the non-Muslims if you are traveling through the land and the disaster of death overtakes you. If you doubt their honesty, detain them after prayer and let them both swear by Allah. We will not sell our testimony for any price, even to a relative, and we will not hide the testimony which we will be giving for the sake of Allah, for we shall be sinners if we do so. We'll inshallah going to take a short break, and when we come back we will do the tafsir.